8:15 p.m. Korea time. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Let's get started, right? We often have the questions around, what would happen if you could no longer use the technology systems that we are all used to on a day-to-day basis, right? I'm not talking about your smartphones or laptops or all these or whatever the systems, right? If you look at these systems, many of us often take it granted and we don't think about it, right? But think about a situation if you could not turn on your light or the refrigerator, or think about a situation you are in an emergency and you cannot dial into emergency services like a 911. And think about a situation, what if you cannot access your bank accounts, right? So that's the context today. So that made us to select this topic. Today, along with my panelists, we'll talk about what are the key learnings we have from the consequences of cyber attacks on these critical systems, and how we are preparing ourselves, or how we should prepare ourselves for tomorrow's attacks. With that said, let me introduce my colleagues. Shiva, why don't you introduce yourself, Shiva? I think, Shiva, you're on mute. No, I cannot hear you. Okay, one second. Let me go with Rahul. In the meantime, you can check. Rahul, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely, Pons. And while I think Shiva figures out the technical issues.
Pons, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, while Shiva figures out the technical issues, hopefully it's not an APT attack that's happening on him. But
That's
hey,
right.
everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Rahul Mavila, and I am currently working as a product manager at Citrix Systems in Bangalore, helping build products and solutions that detect and protect automated attacks against applications such as bot attacks. So it's an absolute privilege and honor to be part of this conference, and especially to be part of this esteemed panel and share my learnings. And I think more importantly, learn from others. I've been in the security domain for over 11 years now, close to 12 years now. And most of the time I've spent in customer facing roles, such as cybersecurity consultant. And over the last three and a half years in the product management role, developing cybersecurity products. So looking forward to have a wonderful discussion here.
That's great to have you, Rahul. Thank you so much. Robin, can you share your experience? What's your background and how we can learn from your experience, Robin?
Yes, sure. I hope I'm audible, Pons.
Yep.
Cool. So I'm in the industry from past around 6 years now, and I've worked with a lot of organizations with mid-scale and small-scale and high-scale organizations in conducting audits and helping them in securing with respect to finding out the gaps that are there and performing audits and basically from the compliance standpoint I've been engaging with the organizations. So yes, definitely the today's topic is going to be very interesting and very much required, and whatever I have experienced in my past by working with the organizations, I have come across certain such situations where critical infrastructure played a very important role. So definitely I'll be sharing my experience, and I'll looking forward to learn from you all. So yeah.
That's good. And one thing you forgot to mention that I can add, Robin is an active contributor in the cyber community, and I would like to echo his contributions, and starting from the schools, and he does a lot of things, because as an industry we need people who can share the learning, right? That's very much important. Thanks, Robin. Shiv, can you share your experience and your background, Shiv? Shiv, we couldn't hear you, Shiv. Maybe you can check your audio. You're on mute. You're mute. Now you're unmute, but we couldn't hear you, Shiv. Rahul, can you hear Shiv?
No, I cannot. I cannot.
Sure. In the meantime, we'll get started. Shiv, do you mind check your audio? Yeah. Let's get started, right? So that, okay, we often have the questions like, what do you mean by critical infrastructure, right? I mean, what do we define? Rahul, can you share your thoughts? Like, what's your view on the critical systems, right? Or critical infrastructure? What we mean by this, Rahul? Can you share your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, Pons. I think that's the crux of our topic, right? I mean, first, what is critical infrastructure and why are attackers behind this critical infrastructure? So from a very high level, Pons, and everyone can add here, in my view, critical infrastructure is any system, process, technology that affects the well-being of public and the economy as well. So it could refer to facilities, technologies, network, assets, services that are essential to health, safety, security, and the economic well-being of public. And that's the key reason why attackers are behind these critical infrastructure, because these are high-value targets, and getting into these infrastructures can have devastating consequences. It's a simple logic, right? I mean, the return on investment from an attacker's point of view, getting into the critical infrastructure is huge. I mean, it might take a lot of time, but if they are able to get into it, they can cause massive disruptions. And we've seen the importance of critical infrastructure in our recent pandemic also. When the entire world was in lockdown, there was certain industry which had to function, and these come under the critical infrastructure. And if I may have to give some examples, it could be your defense. I mean, whatever happens, you need to have the defense of your country up and running. You need to have your telecom systems up and running all the time. Your health and safety concerns, your hospitals have to be up and running. Electricity, and some of these things that Pons mentioned in his introduction, which we sometimes take as guaranteed, but we take these are guaranteed because these are always up and running because they are critical infrastructure.
That's right. Very well said, Rahul. One of the key highlights for me, like whenever the hackers select the target, they always apply the economic formula of, the cost of attack should be less than the value. In this case, like you rightly mentioned, the value is among us, right? That's the reason it's always getting impacted. That's very well said, Rahul. Let's get into the, let's change the gears a little bit, right? So what are the—
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
Can
you.
you hear me now?
I can hear
sorry.
you. Thank you. No worries. Yeah, thank you. Shiva, why don't you quickly introduce yourself while we are touching upon the topic?
Sure. I'm sorry, there is some technical issue. Hey, good morning and good afternoon, folks. My name is Shiva Kumar Dakshinamurthy. You can call me Shiva. I have total 20 plus years in IT and infrastructure support experience, specifically on the NOC operation plus a large IT security domain. Before this, I was working with IBM, managing the large IT security projects. I'm happy to be part of this event and like to share my perspective on this, this area of funds. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this is the classical example. We can pick it up, right? Now we are talking about a simple technology disruption. We were not able to make a progress. But think about the impact, right? Like Rahul rightly mentioned, think about the impact where I cannot, call the emergency service, or I cannot make a call, or I cannot get the water. Think about the kind of impact it's going to make on the entire society level, right? So with that context, let's share our thoughts, right? Robin, can you share some recent, the attacks on the critical infrastructure so that we as an audience can understand the impact of the attacks, Robin?
Yeah, sure. So there have been a lot of such cyber attacks that have happened in the past. So I would like to touch upon a few. So there's a South Korean nuclear research body with the named Korean Atomic Energy Research Institute, and they have been had a attack which is said to be done by the Kim Soo-ki group. So Kim Soo-ki is again said to be a North Korean based APT group, and they are active since 2012. So their main targets were South Korean think tanks, the bigger industries, nuclear power operators, and all. As Rahul said, they these all comes under the critical infrastructure, And Kimsuki, they have been, in the past expanding their target not just to South Korea, but also to United States, Russia, and various other nations in the European regions. So they have also tried to attack many pharmaceutical and research-based companies working on the COVID-19 vaccines and therapies. So that's again a very critical infrastructure, right? When it comes to the pharmaceutical industry, Cisco Talos, which is a threat intelligence organization, recently discovered that a campaign was operated by this Kimsuki APT group, and they were delivering high malware to the South Korean critical infrastructure based targets, and namely on the geopolitical and aerospace research agencies. So this campaign has been active since at least June 2021. So the attacker used a blog spot in this campaign to host the malicious malwares, and later Talos coordinated with Google to alert them of these blog posts, and it was later on removed. So they were trying to gather information, steal the credentials, and later on perform the attack in such a way that the APT makes a huge impact, right? So and talking about the Korean Atomic Energy Research Institute, the attack was done through VPN. So over the pandemic time, remote working happened a lot, right? And very lot of companies moved to the use of VPNs, though it was being used earlier as well, but the use of VPNs increased a lot. So what happened was, with VPNs, it became an easy target for these type of hackers group, and they were able to easily attack the tunneling system or the VPN system, and they were able to steal the credentials. So apart from that, in 2019 we have seen a Lazarus group, which is another APT group that have operating on behalf of the North Korean government. Again, they hacked the Kundankulam nuclear power plant in India, which is in the southern state of Tamil Nadu,
That's
right?
good.
And
That's good, Robin.
however,
That's good, Robin. So a lot of interesting observations. It clearly shows like they always choose a target that's going to create a huge impact, right? That's very interesting. Thanks for sharing your experience, Robin. Shiv, I know you are exploring a lot, and you used to research a lot in the same attack space. Shiv, can you share your thoughts, Shiv, from a different perspective?
Yeah, sure, Pons. Just adding to Robin, whatever he said, right? Uh, Financial area, right? BFI sector is one of the very key, the developed one. Actually, this easy target for the hackers. So when you talk about on the financial area, that the
And there
CNA
is the money
financial,
as well, right? And there is the money as
yeah,
well. It's
of
worth
course,
hitting.
of
Yeah,
course.
that's right. Yeah.
It's big money. It's big money, in fact, actually. So in March 2021, right? It is this year itself. Senior Financial Corporation is really got into the ransomware attack. Yeah, so CNA Financial Corporation is one of the largest insurance company in US, right? So they were the victim for the ransomware attack on the in the month of March. So companies really face the disturbance on their system, and complete network is got into the halt actually. So the CNA hacker, what they did is they used the new malware called Phoenix Locker. This is actually a variant of the ransomware from they have created the one more duped version of Hades. The Hades was created by Russian hackers, the syndicate called Evil Corp. So this is one of the massive and biggest attack in the financial the domain and that area. Adding to this, again on the biomanufacturing area, but that is really very key thing, right? Now, that pandemics are showing very important area in biomanufacturing research and developing vaccines for other medicines also, right? So this is the easy target for them to get the intellectual property, and they also wanted to make a big money out of it, hackers. So as per the very recent, like just 2 days back, I was just going through one of the research paper there. The advisory is released by the Bioeconomy Information Sharing and Analysis Center, they were saying tardigrade is a new malware. It is clearly they have targeted for only for the biomanufacturing facilities. The attack is designed specifically to steal the intellectual property and the private research related to the COVID-19 vaccine. So this is it's just as it just 2 days back the advisory it is. So hackers are really, they use always very, very sophisticated way to get into this to, to make money out of it. This two
That's
things
good.
I can immediately think of. Yeah.
Sure, that's good. And it looks like it's too scary. Another takeaway here is like we cannot just deploy a security control and sit back and relax, right? It's time to keep thinking about it and keep, assess the way the attacker is trying to impact our attack surface, and then come out with our own mechanisms. Robin, can you share your thoughts? Like, why are we too concerned about APTs when we talk about the critical infrastructure, Robin? Why? Why are we too concerned?
Yeah, like when we say the advanced persistent threat, right? It significantly varies from each other, and it has an ability to infiltrate a network, get undetected, and execute various type of actions, right? So most of the time the companies do not are not in a position to even know or understand that there is an attack going on. So if you look at the history, there was an attack like Stuxnet, where when the organization was not able to identify until they had lost most of their infrastructure. So this is one of the major concern about APT, that it has been playing around from a long time, and the ability to get undetected, where organizations have certain controls in place of what they assume to be well preventing and detective the threats. But when it comes to the APT, these threats are at a very advanced level, which the usual control, so we have to be thinking it from a different angle to detect the APTs, right? So this is one of the challenging thing that we all are concerned, and majorly they target the critical infrastructure, and we are all talking about it as to why, how important the critical infrastructure is, right? So these things makes it very important, and makes us worry about the APT attack. There's one of the attack in the critical infra called as Xenotime, which is an advanced persistent threat. It has links with Russia. It has carried out an attack on the ICS, that is industrial control systems of the Middle Eastern oil company, um, with just a small piece of malware, right? And it is one of the few pieces of malware that has managed to impact the physical the process of an ICS system, right? So they aim to also target the power supply systems, they target the pharmaceutical, they target the financial. And when we look at it, these are very critical for us. And when we are saying that it gets undetected, I'm not saying that we are not having enough controls, but the controls that are required, it needs to be implemented in the right way, and that's the main worry of how to do it. With the increased amount of threats that are going on day by day, we also have to be thinking like among the hackers, and see how we can detect them. A continuous monitoring, continuous implementation of different controls are required in order to do it, and this makes it challenging for the organization. So
That's good.
that's my thoughts.
That's good. That's
And
good.
Robin and Pons, if I may add, I think one of the key factors why APT becomes so difficult to identify is in its name. It's advanced persistent. So there's something that we call as a dwell time. The time when the attack actually comes into your enterprise and when we actually discover it. Now there was a recent study which said that for over 40% of these attacks, the dwell time, that is the time between it first came in and the time we detected, is over 30 days. And for over 12% of these attacks, it is over 700 days. So it's close to 2 years So for
it means that 2 years, someone sitting in your house and you have no visibility, right?
Exactly, and that's where
Yes,
this becomes,
yes.
critical, and more and more focus should be there on not just identifying single attacks, not just identifying and blocking or implementing security solutions which are protecting north to south, outbound to inbound thing. There are instances where these sort of attacks can evade your security solutions, but we also need to keep focus on what happens right within your network also. I mean, that's where zero trust and everything else also will come into picture.
That's good. And that's where in a people who have a military background, they can make out, right? It's not about just clear the enemies. It's about clear and hold the destination, right? Hold your target. That's very important. So that's an interesting
scary.
learning.
It's really a bit scary once, to knowing 12% of the attacks is more than 700 days. We're not even aware someone is sitting on our network and doing the thing.
Right.
It's scary.
That's right.
It's scary.
That's right. And let's change the gears, right? One side we are talking about a lot of cyber attacks and their consequences. Other side, we all understand the impact and influence of these critical systems in a day-to-day life. But what I wanted to understand, like, what makes these critical systems vulnerable for cyber attacks? Rahul, can you share your thoughts? Like, what makes these systems vulnerable?
Yes, absolutely. So I think there are multiple factors why these critical systems are vulnerable. So I think point one is these are attractive targets. So attackers want to reach out to these targets. So of course, then it becomes vulnerable. I think the second and another critical point is a lot of these systems are very complex. I mean, if you look at the nuclear power plant, if you look at our telecom systems, if you look at the defense technology settings, these are all very complicated. And at a lot of times, as a admin, you are not aware of all the different nodes and functions within that particular system. So you may be looking at only some part of the system, but the other part of the system might be talking to each other. And in these systems, a lot of these communications are not only human to the system. A lot of times these are M2M communication, machine to machine communication, which we miss looking into, which we miss trying to identify if there is some malicious traffic going among these. So that was the second point, which is these systems are very complex.
That's good. That's interesting. Interesting to hear. Yeah, Robin, can you share your thoughts, Robin? What makes these systems vulnerable for cyber attacks?
Complexity is one, as Rahul said. The next thing could be an hybrid infrastructure, right? So many of these systems involve a mix of insecure and outdated systems. Like we see that many of the organizations still have Windows 7 running, and we can't say that it's not a right thing in a complete way. But what happens is they are also in a position where they have to be using it to a certain extent. Otherwise the entire infrastructure has to be changed, right? So somewhere they are using a Windows 7, on the other side they are using the latest version. So it's a mix of the entire infrastructure, and the loopholes could be anywhere, right? It can be from the Windows 7, it could be from the the latest version of Windows that is being used, or any of the latest version. So when we say a hybrid infrastructure, so it's a mixture of everything, which has security, which has not security. So this makes it again more easy for the attackers to find that little bit of gap. And from an attacker's perspective, when I see it, they don't look for the bigger things. Okay, they don't look for some big things to hack into. Very small things, minute things, a minute gap is what the attackers look for, and through them they try to get into the attack. So the recent GoDaddy had an attack in the data breach it had in the last week, right? So it was due to a password compromise, very small thing that they have found, and they were able to get the access to it. So yes, the second point of what I would like to make is the hybrid infrastructure, which is a combination of all the secure, insecure, and dependencies from the third parties. Like we're using maybe Microsoft, we're using maybe AWS, so it's their responsibilities as well. So there comes up the zero-day concepts and all, where attackers are constantly trying to find some or the other vulnerabilities, and there's just not one point that they're trying to attack, they are attacking it at a different levels, which could be from the network, database, front end, back end, and everything. So hybrid infrastructure is what I would like to say here.
That's an interesting takeaways, Robin. I think that's where the entire cyber industry is talking about secure by design, right? With all these complexities and the hybrid infrastructure, if you end up like adding security as a patch or add-on, it's not going to work, right? It's not something you can do a bolt-on. What you need is a way to build your, the cyber security strategy as a design, as part of your design, right? That's very critical. Very good learning, Robin and Rahul. Shiv, can you share your thoughts? Like, what did we learn so far, right? We are talking about a lot of attacks on the critical infrastructure. What did we learn from those past attacks, Shiv?
Yeah, sure, Punch. See, we discussed about the complexity, how complexity to the current environment, right? And always hackers are looking for the opportunity to intrude and easily to take away the things. So the prime target, right, for the cyber criminals has been all the times is operational technology networks, which is interconnected with the ICS, which Robin already talked about on this, right? Which is managing the critical infrastructure, now. So like services like power grid, water treatment facility, right? These all very, interconnected with the, OT technology along with IoTs it is. So, so of course, the recent attacks, whatever we talked about, are very sophisticated, the highly technical in nature and well planned, right? So, what are the key learnings? We talk about the key learning on this. The first point I would say, no system is immune to hacking, right? We always used to use, you always look for best practices. Are we implemented the best practices? That's one of the very key things actually. When you're not implementing when you're not following this best practices, right? Specifically, it has its own issues on this, like primarily on the critical infrastructures, because they have this own a few of the intrinsic flaws, right? Some of them are, if you talk about on the best practices, lack of standardization in the cybersecurity practices. That's one of the key things, and especially in the supply chain, lead to great exposure on this area, right? And second thing is very absolute and unsupported architecture and the firmware. These are again, one of the key reasons that this. Another one is the misconfiguration, right? Misconfiguration is played a very high amount, a significant portion of the attack, whatever we see in the recent study. So we easily people do the mistake on misconfiguration. So that's the reason always is good to say that just follow the best practices, and of course we can able to minimize this attack surfaces, right? Another one is we have to do the the testing often, right? Keep on doing the proper testing in your environment. Keep critical infrastructure very efficient and effective way, and challenging enough. We need to keep checking that is. Maybe you can avail help from the organizations who specialized on this to test the environment. Really, it is proof enough to handle this. This are another key learning is comes on this. Third is human, right? When you talk about humans are the weakest link anywhere, right? So you just assume that always hackers are already inside your organization. You think that, right? We already seen some of the research, right? They have stolen your credential already. So they have found multiple ways to expose your things. How do we control this, right? The only way here it is you need to train your humans. Very important, right? Very important. Educate your employee. Always be ask them to be vigilant and raise awareness of potential threats. Whatever the latest is happening around. So the IT staff must be aware of all the time. You need to keep on training them to give the proper information what's happening around them, right? So another key lesson here it is the exposures and path analysis is one of the top cybersecurity priority actually, where the recent research shows very clearly, also the feedback from the CIOs and CISOs, right? Conducting the path analysis across the cross environment, right? It's very difficult task for them also to get this done actually. So there is a OT and IT highly interdependent. So getting into this path analysis is one of the key area. It is always again linked to your attack surface, right? This is another key learning here on this, Rahul. Sorry. Another one is, supply chain and the third party risk, which is what are the very, very key major threat, right? Supply chain and the third party network are one of the top security risks. Why I'm saying is there is, to improve your business, you need to integrate with the various, vendors and suppliers to this. But are they really equipped with the standard what you are looking? We may not aware unless until you do the third party, by avail the help and scan their proper, their posture, security posture. Always you need to do the, scanning and due diligence before you integrate with your network on this now. So this I can think of these are the things, right? One of the key learning from the past attacks, right? So of course, learning from this incident can help better monitoring, detect, prevention, and protection. These are some of the key area what I can think of sharing this forum.
That's very good, very good. There are two key takeaways for me. Like we often see organizations talking about pointed security product just to solve a specific problem. But like you rightly mentioned, we should start with doing a complete attack surface analysis, because just because your peer is investing $1 million to protect their the app or network attack surface doesn't mean that the same security controls or security strategy is going to help you as well, right? That's not a fair game. You as a owner of your attack surface should be able to do a complete attack surface analysis to figure out what are the entry and exit points where someone can exploit you. That's very important. Then you figure out a way to build a strategy. And these days, the entire industry is talking about a resilient strategy, right? We need to have a resilient strategy. It's not about just investing on one side of the equation, saying I'm going to protect my perimeter, whether it's virtual or real perimeter, and then say that I'm protected, right? Rahul rightly mentioned that we are talking about a couple of months of persistence, right? And we are talking about a couple of months of dwell time. So what we need is a way to do a complete understanding of our own attack surface. When hackers are going to exploit you, I'm pretty sure they might have done a very thorough analysis of your environment, right? Or else they cannot exploit you. So what we need is the attack surface analysis and then think about a resilient strategy. That's one. Second thing, Shiv, you rightly mentioned, it's not about just taking care of our own attack surface, right? Now, with all the global business, it's critical for us to expand our, the defense mechanism beyond our own perimeters, right? For example, I mean, right? Yeah. We are depending on our suppliers. We are depending on third-party APIs. We are depending on others' apps and desktops. So it's time to do a complete attack surface analysis, which is spread across your own environment as well as the suppliers that you are depending on, and then build your security strategy. And make sure that your security strategy is resilient enough even to handle the scenarios like Rahul rightly mentioned, right? That's what that's my takeaway, Shiv. Thank you.
Yes, correct. I think when you talk about opens, it's not only IT alone, right? When it comes to critical infra, right, and critical infrastructure and critical industries, it's always integrated with most of the times with the OT. That is where the sometimes we need to we've seen this. It is little outdated ones always will be there. IT is we can able to get, but when it comes to OT, it comes with its own flaw. But we need to take, as you rightly mentioned, the surface properly, check it out, all the attack surfaces. Can it be done in different way? Yes, that they have to really take care of that. Thanks, Panch.
Right, that's a very good point. Thanks for sharing. Robin, are we really secured enough, or are we really prepared enough to secure from future attack, Robin? That's a kind of $1 million question for you, Robin.
Yes, Paul. So we all, when we are in security, we all, believe that there is nothing that is 100% secure, right? We go with the 0% security trust. And with respect to this, the assumption is that we have to think like we are not secure. That's where we would be, taking the proactive measures and the right measures to secure ourselves. So if we think that we are secure, like when I talk to many of the industry people, they say that, hey, I am secure, right? I have security controls. We do have a lot of things. So that's where the problem is. So we have to assume, the first thing is we have to assume that we are not secure. to a, we are 0% secure. Like the companies who think that we are 0% secure, I believe that they will be in a good position to think of implementing controls the right way in a different angle. So that's one thing. And adding to this, we have already seen the how the critical infrastructure is, I mean the complexity and all that. So with respect to this, it is important that uh, we cannot come to a point where we say that okay, we have implemented n number of controls and we are secure, nor we can say that okay, we have done like this and we are secure. No, it should be an ongoing process. It should be an ongoing activity. So we consider the people, process, and the technology at a high level when we see where we have to think of each of the aspects. It's important that we list down the assets that we have, including the employees, like Shiva said, which are the most weakest point. And starting from the employees, what are the different assets that we have, what network we have, among the assets, whether we have anything that is outdated. If we have anything outdated, what type of uh, compensatory controls can be added to each of the assets so that we are protecting it. Okay, each of it we need to protect. And implementing different types of controls, continuous monitoring is something that would require. So the network segmentation has nearly about 59% of vulnerabilities. Secure remote access, the remote access is 53%. Ransomware, phishing, and the spam protection is up to 33%. So overall, the internet or the networks, then when we say it is full of malwares, it is full of attacks, and attackers are targeting it every second and every day. So most importantly, the compliance here comes into picture, right? We have seen there are a lot of standards that are in place already, helping
Robin, when you
and
talk about compliance, always we used to get a question, right? Is it just because I'm complained, does it equate to the other question what I asked you, right? Are we secure? Just because I'm complained, is it going to give the answer, Robin? Can you share your thoughts?
Yes, I was, yeah. So see, being compliant does not mean that you are 100% secure there, right? It's just an assurance that you're getting that, okay, I have, to certain level, I have these things in place. You get to see a graph in front of you, when you are compliant to, which means that, you can see that, yes, these things have been protected, because compliance also includes a lot of things. One of the important factor of the compliance, related to the compliance, is the metrics, to see how we are doing, what we are getting. I've seen companies who have good metrics, and when they have the get the metrics calculation maybe on a monthly basis, when they see how many attacks we have faced, how many threats we have faced, how many new type of malwares are there, how many new types of phishing mails came into our infrastructure. So this is also a part of compliance that I would like to relate to, which will give you a continuous graph of what's happening around, right? And that is very important. So compliance, when people consider it like, yes, I have to follow this and I have followed this, if they consider to this point, then definitely they become more vulnerable, is what I say. So compliance is again a continuous process that needs to be followed in a way. And definitely we have a lot of very good standards when we talk about the international market. There are so many standards and regulations which will help us to understand what needs to be there, right? So if you just go with the maybe NIST or anything like that, you will get a it's like a bible that you get, where you are reading and understanding the different controls that are required. So definitely compliance plays an important role, but getting into a conception that compliance will secure me to 100% is not the right thing. But yes, it involves a lot of things, like you keep on monitoring, keep on looking at the graph and see how things are going. And like recently we are seeing the concept of bug bounties and all, like bug hunters, where this is one of the good concept that I would like to share with all of you. Like recently, as per the my study that I've been doing, I've seen that lot of black hat hackers are becoming white hat hackers with the introduction of bug bounty. When companies like Facebook, Google, when they pay the researchers or the attackers also in dollars, a lot of black hat people are getting themselves into the white hat, and they're reporting and they're becoming ethical. So this is one of the change that we are seeing in the industry. However, if the attackers, if the black hat attackers have a completely a negative thinking in place, then that's something that cannot be stopped. The evil mind cannot be stopped. But yes, when in the past we had been seeing people becoming black hat hackers because of fun and all, but they are becoming white hat hackers, right? So there are certain things that are changing in the industry that we are seeing, which is minimizing the threats and especially the APTs. But we have to be very careful with the hacking groups. Like we have the Anonymous, we have Lazarus group, and we have lot of we have the Lizard Squad group. Lot of groups have been operating in the underground, in the black market. That's where we have to focus. And yeah, to conclude my point, see, security is not like one time thing. It's an ongoing activity that needs to be doing from a different perspective. And that's where we have different departments in an organization, starting from physical security, starting from the and the logical security. So there are smaller things that needs to be taken care of, including maybe CCTV camera, maybe the visitor management systems, the third party systems and all that. Looking it at 360 angle would give us an understanding of how we are going. So yeah,
Sure,
that's
sure, Robbie. That's
my thought.
interesting, right? That's interesting. One of the key takeaway for me, the typical, the cyber industry, right? If you look at the both the side of the equations, uh, hackers always do the collective offense, right? They share information, they coordinate well in the dark web to exchange their findings and validate their attack campaigns with others. But on the other side, the defense people like us, we also should do the same thing. I think that what you rightly mentioned, the transition of black hat mindset to a white hat mindset, that's very critical, and that's very well aligned to the collective defense that the industry requires, right? Very well said. Rahul, I have one question for you. There's a question from the audience. Like, we keep talking about APTs. Can you share some lights on the APTs, Rahul?
I mean, APTs, as in the advanced persistent threats, is like by definition it is an attack where you get into the network but stay low. You're not immediately starting to extract information and send it back to your control channel. So you're staying low, you're waiting for the right opportunity to move laterally, identify other hosts in the network, identify vulnerabilities there, and then move laterally. And then when the right time comes, start sending out the data. And this sending out the data is also done in such a manner that it evades your security controls. So you're not sending bursts of data, you're not sending loads like gigabits of data all over at once, because that might be of concern, and your security protocols and security solutions might be able to detect it. But you basically act low. One of the things that I can think about is even in an account takeover attack, typically what used to happen was somebody used to you have a login page, and if an attacker wants to break that login page, you try multiple username password combination. You basically try to brute force into that login page. If you do that, your security mechanism will identify, hey, I see a large ratio of auth failures. What is going wrong here? But now attackers have changed themselves. Now they are going by a low and slow account takeover. So they've spread these login attempts across multiple bots or other users, and they try to attempt only few logins in probably a day. which try to evade the existing security controls. So that's a typical way how security,
what's the typical the kill chain that they follow? Is it the same as the traditional attacks, or what differentiates them?
Yeah, absolutely. So absolutely, Pons. In fact, the first question is why APT, right? Why would someone do an APT? I think we kind of covered this on the outset, but just to give a background, in my view, there are three reasons why somebody or some groups might do an advanced persistent threat. One is for financial gain, and I think that's what Robin also touched upon, that if somebody is trying to do only for financial gain, maybe giving them bug bounties might make them move from being a black hat attacker to an ethical hacker. The second one and the third one are more, it's not that easy for us to change them. And they are probably doing an APT attack for hacktivism. They have some philosophical differences, or they are state-sponsored espionages. Right. In all of these APT attacks, the different stages that we see is, first and foremost, there has to be a recon. And when I say a recon, you're basically trying to understand you're not going for an attack directly. You first try to understand the lay of the land. You're trying to understand,
because the hackers pretty much aware that if I'm going to hit without any preparedness, I'm get caught. Because exactly. This is the only job I have, right? Yeah, good
exactly.
Point.
So you scan the network, you scan the attack surface to understand in the backend what is it they're using. Are they using an Apache server? Are they using something else? So that they can modify the attack accordingly. And then comes the second phase, which is infiltration. So that's where the attack happens. They might be trying to, there are 10 users within this environment who I can lure through social engineering. I mean, that's the recon that they may have did. And then comes the infiltration, where they would have sent that phishing email to that particular individual. Once that infiltration happens, the second part is escalation. Try to get escalated privilege levels within that environment. And then comes the lateral movement, which I spoke earlier on. Because what you want to do is, once you're in the network, you want to get control of as many nodes within that system as much as possible. The reason being, one, you get more data. Two, even if the previous entity or endpoint that they had, they were able to capture, it gets compromised, or the company is able to identify that particular user is compromised. You still have now other users where you can leverage and move forward. And once that lateral movement happens, I think the last part is that exfiltration, which again is a subject in itself on how attackers try to exfiltrate. Do they do it slowly? Do they do it? They need to send back the data back to the command center. So that's the exfiltration. So yeah, I think it's recon, then you do infiltration, escalation, then you do the lateral movement, and last but not the least, exfiltration.
That's right. It clearly shows like they follow the well orchestrated campaign. It's not like just take a stone and throw it on you, right? That's not the way. And like you rightly mentioned, even though the key objective is to exploit the critical infrastructure, I'm pretty sure they always make sure that they take enough precautions to evade from the security controls, right? They're not underestimating. And on the other side, the defenders should also follow the same thing, right? Like Robin and Shiv rightly mentioned, defenders like us, we should also be prepared for a resilient strategy where, okay, we are secure, but even then we should be prepared to react to the exploit if at all something happens, right? That's a very good summary, Rahul. Shiv, can you, just to wrap it up, can you share your top 3 recommendations for the audience? What do you suggest for us?
Okay, I think so far very, very interactive. It is nice to know many things from all our panelists and you, Pons. Talk about, right, one thing I liked it from Robin, what he said, right? Your compliance is not equal to security, right? That's a very, very bold and underlined word. Most of the bigger organizations, what it does, they just apply some specific technology to that, particular area, right? Okay, when you go and talk to some of the, the senior folks over there, they say that, yeah, I applied all the security posture and my thing. Is it technology alone is going to safeguard your complete thing? May not be true, right? If they have to go for the complete wrap up, right? What we discussed on this, maybe you fixed it in one area, there is other area is still open, but it is, you have to look at all 360-degree angle, right? How we can able to do what is required from that area, also do that, right? That's the one. Second, as Rahul mentioned, right, uh, attackers are getting very smarter and smarter day by day, and it is very, very sophisticated way they are getting into this, right? APT is not like, one just hit and run case. They are very, very targeted, and they recon very specifically, okay, this particular customer is really, worth, can I spend time on it? They do the all kind of work on it, right? Sometimes there is a saying, right? Your attacker know better than the IT manager what he knows, right?
That's right.
From outside, outside, he get into detail. He knows what are the vulnerable intent. But the moment he get inside, he's laying low and keep on keep extending the reach. They know all the things very very clearly. As Rahul mentioned, immediately they take over completely and stage wise they are doing it now. I think we
That's
need to be
good.
very very careful, very
That's
very
good.
careful on
That's
that
good.
area. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
good.
one.
Yes.
Yeah. I know it is. It's APT is not a very easy way what people think that, right? It is. They may take time for them to do it, but the one proper attack, it's more than enough. Most of the time, what I seen, um, mainly for the financial gain, or it is for the state-sponsored one, right? When it comes to financial gain, but the recent one, even the colonial pipes, right? They really completely halted more than 6 7 days. It is one of the biggest one actually, right? Even the U.S. government got into the detail, right? We know that it is all on the public domain. I don't want to get into too much of detail on this. And think
Sure.
the way it is being done, that's what I'm trying to say here. It is we can't take it so lightly, right? And on attack surfaces, wherever there is opportunity, people need to get into this. We can't leave it. Okay, my setup target may not be my setup may not be a target for hackers. That's actually not.
We cannot have
That's
a
the mindset.
ignorance, like we, unlike a
Yeah,
computing device, we cannot have ignorance that who needs my
absolutely.
who needs my critical infrastructure, right? It might be critical for me.
Yeah,
That ignorance
yeah,
have to go away. Okay, thanks Shiva.
absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely, absolutely.
Robin, can you share your top three recommendations as we wrap up, Robin?
Yeah, the last statement that you said, points which I always hear. One is, who will attack me? Why do I require? So this is one of the another common thing that I've been hearing from a lot of people, business owners, when they say like, who cares me? So this has to be changed. We should not think that we are not. So much valuable. I mean, in terms of the organization or the data that we have, what we have to understand is every data is valuable, and data is said to be the new oil, right? So information gathering, second thing is information gathering, which Rahul was saying that it plays a very important role in gathering what information they have. So we also have to be gathering as much information as possible about the infrastructure that we have, because when I speak to my people, when I take the training or when I speak with ethical hackers, I always ask them to focus more and more on information gathering or reconnaissance, right? So that's very important. Point number two. And point number three is understanding and having an overall understanding of what the organization has in place. Many of the top management do not know what they have, right? Maybe they might have an internet IoT based CCTV, IoT based lift, IoT based things and all. These smaller things are where we are missing out. So very important to have an high level and overall view of what exists in an organization, not missing out anything, so that each of these assets are being taken care and are being protected.
That's
So
good.
yeah.
That's good. Very good, Robin. Rahul, can you share your top three so that
Sure.
we can wrap it up?
Sure, absolutely, Pons. And it was a very interesting conversation. I think three key learnings that I have from this session and from my experience so far is, one is prioritize cybersecurity. Do not wait for an attack to start thinking about it. And the reason I say this
you
is
cannot plan when you are under attack. So.
exactly. And the
Yeah,
reason I say
absolutely.
this is all the conversation we've been having with the different enterprises. They say that, hey, I've not faced an attack so far, so why would I? And this is what I think Robin was also saying. So prioritize cybersecurity, and follow the second one is follow the least privilege access rule. The zero trust principles. I think Shiva also touched upon this. that, one of the common mistakes that happen is human configured error. So always follow the least privilege access rule so that you provide only the limited access, only the required authentication and authorization for those users. And I think the third one that I want to say, and I'll end with this, is the attackers are evolving. They are getting more and more sophisticated and complex. That means, as a defender, if we are still sticking to our static rules, signature-based rules, that is not sufficient. We have to look at how do we identify the attack from a behavior pattern. Start looking at anomalous behavior. Once an attacker is inside your company and when they're exfiltrating data, there will be some anomalous behavior. It will not be a regular pattern. So try to look for these minute details. We have to leverage advanced technologies. AI/ML is one of them. So start leveraging these technologies to adapt your solutions. And I think that will be the key going forward.
That's good. Very interesting one. If I may add, a couple of more points add to what you mentioned. If you look at the ground reality, right? Even now, the critical infrastructure remains mostly driven by the private sector, right? And that's the reason, I would always suggest that it requires a coordinated effort between the private and public sector to handle the complicated and sophisticated attacks like ransomware and IoT threat. It's very critical, right? And we are seeing some momentum, for example, to address the gaps in the security protocols and standards in the critical industries. Governments, a lot of federal governments taking initiatives. One of the things which I could remember, like European Union Agency for Cybersecurity, they last year they published a guidelines on security IoT supply chain, right? Specifically to guide the folks, basically the IoT vendors, to follow those security standards rigorously. Like you rightly mentioned, Rahul, a couple of minutes before, the complexity and ignorance of those security principles is a problem. So the European Union Agency for Security taking enough, actions, but it's time for more investments on those kind of, the industry-wide participations. Another one, Robin rightly mentioned about NIST. NIST developed a number of guidance documentation, in line with the private and other industry evangelists. It gives the, the importance, right? It's not something we can do it in a silo. Rather, it requires a participation from both the government and the private sector. And it should not be limited to a particular industry, and it should go beyond, any industry borders, right? That's very important. With that said, what I would like to conclude with one thing: don't ever assume that tomorrow's attacks are going to be same as yesterday's. That's the biggest mistake that a lot of us do. Don't do that. Tomorrow's attacks is going to be completely different. So what we need is a way to build a resilient strategy which can secure the so-called critical infrastructure. Right. With that said, thank you. Thanks for the time, and hope it was interesting. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you.
This has been a really wonderful discussion, and hope that our audience also found it valuable as well, Pons. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I want to quickly introduce about the next session so that it gives a good continuous learning experience for you. The next session is about hackers, basically vulnerabilities against critical industry in 2021. It will talk about the new cyber criminals, how they are attacking the computing and the networking systems. The panelists are Hing-Chan Park and Security Plus community and SHIP community representative. And we have Nicholas Thomas. He's a solution architect for Alaska and Tracker Detect, and he's also CEO at Incan Link. And we have a Delaware alum. He's a managing director and security researcher at Bucks BD Limited. I'm pretty sure you will find it interesting, and wish you all the best. Thank you.